Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome back. It is exactly 8:57 a.m. We'll be talking now with Asima Musa from the Fordsburg Muslim Youth Organization about their latest initiative. And I'm truly, truly impressed. Alhamdulillah, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless these young people for this wonderful initiative. Assalamu alaikum to you, Asima. Welcome to the program. And gosh, congratulations. Wonderful work you guys have undertaken in Fordsburg and the Greater Johannesburg area. I do know you have been, or the organization's been very involved in burial services. It seems now that you are taking on much more as regards support of our communities. How did this new initiative come about, and tell us what it's all about, please?
Walaikum salam, Auntie Julie. So the medical supplies division started in 2019, actually. It was just prior to COVID, probably about 3 or 4 months prior to COVID. And the reason it started was we have a social welfare division in addition to the burials. And often we'd go to do our distributions, and a lot of the destitute people had problems getting wheelchairs and commodes and walkers. A lot struggled in that aspect. And if you understand the medical field, you'll know that all of this equipment is quite expensive. Several of our patients are also not well at all. We've often delivered beds and had to pick up in a week or two. So we found that there was a gap that wasn't being serviced to people. So we launched the medical supplies division in 2019, and we started out with just commodes and walkers and wheelchairs. When the COVID-19 pandemic hit, we saw the need for oxygen concentrators. And during the peaks, FMYO in Gauteng and surrounds was probably the largest hold of oxygen concentrators. In fact,
Wow.
we became so popular with the medical fraternity that we would get calls on a daily basis, sometimes fielding 50 to 60 phone calls for concentrators, because at that point, when this third wave hit, and Johannesburg was hit hardest in the third wave, well, 1 and 2 weren't difficult for us. We had quite, all the medical aids ran out of equipment because they were supplying. All the people that were renting ran out of equipment. So we were sitting with the largest stock. We went up to about 200 concentrators at that time. And as time went, we started selling a few off when things started settling. Right now, we have a lot of post-COVID patients. So we send out concentrators primarily. We haven't had much of a call for actual COVID-19, but we have a call for post-COVID patients, a lot of COPD patients, lung cancer patients that we supply equipment to. But our biggest distribution currently is hospital beds, believe it or not. When you have someone that's really ill, that's coming out of hospital, it becomes very difficult to manage them in a standard home bed. You need something that's higher to do a bed bath, to administer medication. It just makes it easier for the patient as well, because it's equipped to handle someone that's in pain. And also, we are probably one of the only organizations that brought in the electronic beds that you get in hospitals. So lifting a patient up and feeding them is easier. We are actually now looking for funding to expand into the medical supplies, because when it comes to wheelchairs, walkers, and commodes, often wheelchairs are long-term loans. I mean, when we send out a wheelchair, it's never with the near of getting it back, because it goes, and most likely, the patient's going to keep it till the end of time. But so we just trying to build up more stock of those sort of things, and of course the hospital beds, because that's become a massive outtake right now.
Alhamdulillah, amazing what you guys have achieved in such a short space of time. So, really, the critical issue here is funding, because Alhamdulillah, when you get the funding, you can just build up your reserves. You mentioned wheelchairs, and if a patient calls for a wheelchair, they're going to be using it for a very, very long period of time. But once it's no longer needed, does it come back to FMYO for further use for other people in need? And how does the community support you? Because you are truly reliant on support from the community.
So What happens, we have a distribution book. So every one of we have representatives throughout Gauteng area. So as far as Lenasia coming all the way down to Pretoria and the East and West Rand. So we have someone that handles each of the specific areas. We have a central depot point, which is managed by Uncle Amin Minty at Honda, and we keep all of our equipment there. And what happens then is, say, for example, you called me, Julian, you said you needed a wheelchair. So then I would take all your details down. We take copies of IDs, 3 telephone numbers, and on a monthly basis, then we just check. More often than not, the family then calls to say if something's happened to the patient, to say this patient has passed away, if you can collect, or we no longer need it, if you can collect. So people are actually quite good about that. You'll find that the ones that keep the wheelchairs are generally people that have been disabled and are not as sick, and they're functional and they'll live a long life. But 90% of our equipment comes back. It's just that the demand has increased, and we aren't discriminative in the sense that this doesn't go only to Muslims, because we feel that this is a small amount of dawah that we provide to the community as well. I can't tell you the amount of raving reviews we've had from non-Muslims during the course of the COVID-19 pandemic, because we were not discriminative at all. If you came to us and you needed it, as long as our doctors validated your issue, we gave you a machine. And it's built a rapport with the non-Muslim community as well, which we think is very important in the sense of in keeping dawah going, because there's always been this perception of Muslims. Well, it's throughout the world. There's this perception that we're terrorists and we are horrible and we badmouth everyone, and that's. I think it created really, really great positivity about us.
Talk to me about the doctors validating the issue around whatever you need to be giving out. So if I come to you and I ask for a hospital bed or whatever for that matter, what sort of validation process would I have to undergo?
So for
does a doctor, sorry for the interruption, would a doctor have to then interact with me or my loved one as well, just to validate that, yes, the piece of equipment is needed, and yes, we will release it to the patient?
Okay, so mostly we do doctor validations for oxygen concentrators. And the reason we do this is often people that we supply don't have access to medical care. And we find that you'd come to me and say, I'm struggling to breathe. I mean, we had a case about a month and a half ago of a gentleman that was struggling to breathe, was swelling, was completely short of breath, but was swelling quite a bit. And these are signs of cardiac failure. So if you don't have doctor intervention, I can give you an oxygen concentrator, but you will die at home because you don't have medical intervention. So the reason we have that framework set up is that we circumvent issues like this. So alhamdulillah, we have 5 amazing doctors that are on our medical review team. We have Dr. Ismail Mitha. I'm sure many people know him. He's a clinical trial specialist. We have Dr. Hussein Had, who's a pulmonologist. We have Dr. Shuaib Wadi, who's a nephrologist. We have Dr. Aisha Wadi, who's a specialist physician and rheumatologist. And I'm trying to think who the 5th one is. No, I think it's just the 4 of them. So,
okay.
So
I've heard of all of them. Alhamdulillah, I've heard of all of them. Yes, amazing doctors. Mm-hmm.
So these doctors then guide us on the right treatment. And often, I mean, there's lots and lots of cases that we've then referred to hospitals because equipment wasn't in their best interest. When it comes to wheelchairs, walkers, hospital beds, commodes, baths, and oximeters, these then are at the discretion of the representative that goes to meet the family or interacts with the family, because really these don't need medical intervention. It's when it comes to something that's going to maintain your health that we then focus primarily on getting doctor's consent, because the last thing we want to do is give someone an oxygen concentrator and they deteriorate at home.
Absolutely. Asima, one final question. These doctors that you've referred to, they are specialists in their own right, well-known specialists with very good reputations in the community. Would they then come in? Where and how does that interaction happen? Would you refer the patient to these doctors, to their consulting rooms, or does the doctor then come to a central point? I presume you have offices, if MYO does have offices. How does this whole scenario play out?
So we have a form that we'll hand out to the family that's requesting the concentrator, and we ask them to get their family GP or whoever's told them that they need a concentrator to fill that out. Then we send that to the doctors. We have a chat that we have with them. We send that to them and they have a look at it and they consult with the doctor concerned. If it's a family that doesn't have a doctor, then only, and most 90% of the time, it's Dr. Ismail Mitha that will engage with the family and discuss what's actually going on. We've had cases where he's been out to visit the patients, but it doesn't always happen. It generally sorts itself on a video consult or a telephone call or something like that. But our doctors then call the doctor that's suggested it and they just have a conversation. And quite often there are people that will see a GP when they actually need to see a specialist, So because we have a broad base of specialists, they'll explain what actually needs to happen. And this has helped us tremendously. And I think we've managed to save many lives of people that needed to actually go to hospital as opposed to home care.
Alhamdulillah, amazing work you guys are doing. Now, apart from us digging deep into our pockets to make a meaningful difference, inshallah, because that is what is required. What about families? And there's lots of families, myself included, that have medical equipment that we don't need any longer. It may be wheelchairs, it may be crutches, commodes, whatever, and still in a very good condition. Are you guys prepared to take it? Can we, bring it over and,
Absolutely. We will send someone to collect it as well.
Oh,
Obviously,
wow.
it has to be in good condition.
Absolutely.
Don't give us something that's not working because it's obviously going to go to someone that's going to use it. So we have collected wheelchairs and commodes and walkers, often from families of the deceased. So they donate to us. And we use all of them. So it will come to us.
Wonderful. In closing, then, what do you want to tell our viewers and our listeners? And obviously, you also need to tell us how we make a meaningful contribution.
Well, donations help the most. And we find that generally it's the families that we loan equipment to that are the biggest donors. And I think don't wait until you need something. Donate. It's a good cause. It really is. 90% of our donors are families that have had a loved one that's been lost, has used our equipment for a period of time and see the value in it. So they make monthly donations. We have a new family that came on board last month, and a Hindu woman, and she said to me, Asima, the one thing that I found through all of this was that nobody rents out or gives out nebulizers, which was strange. It used to happen 20 years ago. You could go to any pharmacy and pick up a nebulizer. Now you can't get one. And she said, can I ask, because her sister developed asthma before she passed away from COVID-19. And she said, can I ask that we have this money that my family donates to get a base of nebulizers? So, don't wait until your loved one is sick. Contribute to it. It's really a good cause. And it goes out, we don't discriminate. It goes out to anyone and everyone, as long as we obviously get validation of who they are.
And finally, very quickly, because we have run out of time, volunteers, people wanting to come on board, give of their time, what sort of voluntary assistance are you looking for? And is there space for people to come on board as volunteers?
There's always space for volunteers. So you can get in touch with Amin Munti or Riaz Mullah. We have space in the burial sector. We have space in medical supplies. Sometimes our volunteers also get tired. So if there's no new faces and new help, it's always welcome. Always, always welcome.
MashaAllah, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept all of these amazing efforts, guide and bless you guys to continue this amazing work. What a pleasure to be talking with you this morning. Asima Musa from FMYO, that's the Forwards of Muslim Youth Organization. And good people, please dig deep into your pockets and make a meaningful difference. Till the next time, Asima, as always, Assalamu alaikum, and keep us in your du'as.
Thank you, Auntie Julie. Assalamu alaikum.
The time is exactly 12 after 9 o'clock. I'm in deep trouble already with Zaid Jadwat. Let's take a very quick break and Zaid can go straight into the news on this Monday morning.